And it's World UFO Day. Did you know? It's today. That's right. A day to honor the belief that we're not alone, America. In fact, 36% of all of us out there say we're certain that UFOs exist. And that brings us to our Twitter question of the day. Have you ever seen a UFO? I mean, if you have, we want the evidence, guys. Tweet me at FNC, Jenna FNC, and use the hashtag #TheRealStory. We'll read your comments at the end of the show. Well, from that to this, it's World UFO Day. Did you know? And a new poll says at least 36% of people here in the United States believe in those flying saucers, and possibly, even more interesting, more than 10% are positive they've actually seen one. Is Trace Galler one of the 10%? Trace?
There's a little bit of good news here, Jenna, because if nothing else, it appears the space aliens, they're very respectful because they tend not to bother us while we're sleeping and while we're working, which is awfully thoughtful. Consider this. The National UFO Reporting Center says since 1974, there have been 90,000 UFO sightings in the United States. That works out to 6 sightings per day. Over the past 15 years, this chart shows you that most of those sightings have happened, don't you know, on Friday night at happy hour, 5 o'clock. But in case you're wondering that maybe it takes a few cocktails to bring the aliens out, not always the case, because the next chart shows you the most sightings happen in Washington State, and Washington State happens to be one of the lowest states for alcohol consumption. Utah, rock bottom for alcohol consumption, but way up there when it comes to UFO sightings. And see the northern states there? A lot of experts believe that's because the northern lights kind of mess with your eyes and think there's some UFOs out there. Keep in mind, they believe that most of these things are easily explained, but some experts say not all. Listen.
There was a small proportion of these cases that were genuinely more interesting. We couldn't prove that they were extraterrestrial, but we didn't rule out that possibility either. And when we had pilots and military personnel, police officers, radar operators reporting these things, performing speeds and maneuvers that we just couldn't match.
And you got to know, it was 67 years ago this week that the supposed crash landing happened in Roswell, New Mexico. Witnesses claim to have seen wreckage and bodies. The Air Force first mentioned a flying saucer, but then decades later changed the report to say, no, it was a weather balloon, and those bodies you thought you saw, those were actually test dummies. Most believe there could be a cover-up in Roswell to this day. There's no actual statistics on how many of those people had just got back from happy hour when they saw the crash and the dummies laying on the ground.
Something to consider according to that research. So, Trace, after all of this, you know, are you a believer?
Of course. Of course. There's something out there, right? I'm a West Coast guy. You see weird stuff all, but it's always after happy hour for me as well.
That's right. As a Californian myself, I certainly understand that. And of course, if we said no UFOs exist, then one would fly across the Los Angeles freeway instead of the car chase, and we'd have to cover it. And then, you know, we're just going to jinx ourselves. So we'll leave every option on the table, right, Trace?
Right.
Thank you.